The question is approach. Why do individuals choose to live together, giving up their freedom in order to live under common rules and laws? In order to answer these questions, I refer to Thomas Hobbes and his perspective of the natural state of humanity. In the natural state of people, you would see behaviors that are selfish and pleasure-seeking. These behaviors are acted out by the motivation to have them met by any means necessary. Preventing these behaviors that are selfish and pleasure-seeking are the idea. In order to put an end to such behaviors, a new artificial entity called the Commonwealth could be developed. The main idea of the Commonwealth is to preserve and protect the welfare of its people involved from individuals and their selfish pleasure-seeking ways. In order for this to be possible, people of the Commonwealth would give up their freedom to the ways of the government authorities. The biggest question is, how does disenfranchising felons suggest to felons what it means to make civilized decisions, again, that are best for the Commonwealth? How does telling a felon that they must participate in the upkeep of the government authority by paying taxes and whatnot equally as the rest of the Commonwealth must, but they can't vote to make decisions that stand for what they are contributing to? By letting felons vote, they are participating in their rehabilitation to becoming an honorable citizen again. Masna and Rugen, 2006. According to Carlin in 2004, the government should not be able to make sanctions against felons that don't meet the crime. When a person commits a crime, there are a set of penalties that have been voted to meet the crime. If the penalty says that you could not vote because of the offense is a threat to having the right to vote, then it would equal the sanction, but not the language used in most felony sanctions. According to Wilson, Owen, and Davis, 2011, in our social contract, the American people agreed to abide to a set of common laws equally. In turn, as part of the Commonwealth, the people are allowed to participate in the choosing of Commonwealth's governance. Therefore, by violating that contract, the felon is making a decision not to have part of the right to play a part in the choosing of the Commonwealth's governance. Such serious behaviors are behaviors that should exclude felons from democratic governance because they have proven the lack of having virtue that is necessary. Or have they? In the following, we have an educator and myself as an addiction counselor that will speak for and against the issue of felon voters. Would you agree with Thomas Hobbes about people being naturally selfish pleasure seekers, or Jean-Jacques Rousseau that naturally people are of good nature?
I would agree with Jean-Jacques Rousseau that people are good in nature. In regard to the social contract, people tend to band together for mutual preservation, safety, and community well-being. This surrender of personal ideas or wants for the collective good allows people to have a greater sense of safety and order.
Why?
Well, people in their natural state and in healthy communities are good in nature. You can see this in young children. When they receive positive feedback or attention, they tend to thrive and grow. In working with adolescent children, it's clear to see that doing good deeds and acts brings about a positive biological reaction, such as body language or facial expression. Most people enjoy the benefits of attention, and it's most rewarding as positive attention. In the public school system, I have witnessed many children seeking attention. if children do not have the skills to participate and follow the social contract of the school culture, they tend to seek attention with behaviors that require attention, such as violence, rule breaking, and disrespect to the community agreements. In essence, people tend to be good in nature in their natural state, but will do whatever it takes to get their needs met, even if that requires breaking the social contract.
What would you say is an appropriate version of the social contract?
The first experience of the social contract outside of the home is within the school system. At this time, youth have an opportunity to follow the social contract at school and practice the community agreements. The agreements and expectations mirror that of the adult world in a way that prepares youth for their civic responsibilities in adulthood. Youth should learn about the social contract of their immediate community first, and then, as they mature, learn about the larger societal scope of the social contract as it pertains to voting rights, laws, crime, and punishment.
How does that apply to your perspective on felons not having the right to vote?
This right varies state to state, and I believe it should be regulated and consistent on a national or federal level. When considering the social contract as it applies to modern times, there should be more clear boundaries for felony charges. In reference to George Brooks in the top 10 pros and cons arguments for felon voting, when someone commits a crime, he commits it not just against the victim, but against our entire society.
Okay, as an educator, why do you think not allowing felons to vote would be an advantage to society?
Well, it would make it clear that if people want a voice in policy and in elected leaders, then they must abide by the social contract, and in modern terms, the law of the federal government.
Okay, what do you have to say about felons being included as part of the Commonwealth? Shouldn't they be included as an equal within the Commonwealth?
They can be included in a variety of ways, such as holding a job, paying taxes, and serving in the military. However, if people want to retain their vote, then they must abide by the social contract set in place. I also believe that a felon waiver could be used to restore felon voting rights. This waiver would be similar to the military felon waiver and would account for the nature of the crime, age at the time of the offense, and a number of other relevant factors that could prove good judgment.
In your perspective, how would the law's ability to prohibit felons from voting best be designed in light of today's legal system?
The legal system is clearly broken and unjust if you consider the racial demographics of the incarcerated population in the United States. This injustice raises concern about disenfranchisement. However, I believe that early education about civic duties, the social contract, and the criminal justice system could deter people from becoming felons in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you agree with Thomas Hobbes about people being naturally selfish pleasure seekers, or Jean-Jacques Rousseau that naturally people are of good nature?
In regards to Hobbes versus Rousseau, I tend to believe in Hobbes' version of people in their natural state. People tend to be selfish pleasure seekers who, if they are not able to meet those pleasures, they will turn from the mask of good guy to the mask of bad guy. I believe at the same time that the natural state of people can be molded from the selfish pleasure seeker to a person of good nature, but that is not them in their natural state.
Why?
The reason I believe this is because I have been out there on the streets and have experienced the culture of people who refrain from interaction with a governmental authority. And when it comes to making ends meet, these people will do whatever it takes. I also know addicts who have lived in such manner who want to change their life around and are only waiting for a chance to prove it.
What would you say is an appropriate version of the social contract?
When it comes to the appropriate version of social contract, I believe the people as one body should have just as much freedom as the body of the government when it comes to the regulation of the law. In order to take part in that freedom, a person as an individual would have to abide by what has been agreed by the people in the government body as civil. Once a person violates the pact restrictions to that individual's freedom would be placed. I believe that with rehabilitation, those restrictions can be taken away.
How does that apply to your version on felons having the right to vote?
In the matter of felons being voters, I believe that if the felon hasn't done anything that could negatively affect the body of the government, then there shouldn't be any restriction to their freedom that has to do with taking part of voting. All people should have a voting say in anything that will affect them as individuals and the people as a whole.
As an addiction counselor, why do you think allowing felons to vote would be an advantage to society?
As a counselor, every day I get to witness people of all ages who only want to change their ways, but in a lot of cases, they are not able to because the stigma society and the government place on them. I believe by telling those clients that they don't deserve to vote because they made mistakes within their addictions, it would only further stigmatize them and cause them not only to give up on themselves as failures, but also on the government that we cherish so much. This only fights against what addiction counseling represents.
What do you have to say about felons being included as part of the Commonwealth? Shouldn't they be included as equal within the Commonwealth?
It is my belief that as long as you are part of the human race, then you are part of the Commonwealth. Although some may require limitations to their freedom with the stipulation of having the ability to work towards freedom, everyone should be considered part of the Commonwealth. Even those incarcerated, they should be protected from the selfish pleasures seeking behaviors of people in their natural state.
Now, in your perspective, how would the law's ability to prohibit felons from voting best be designed in light of today's legal system?
So, in today's legal system, the people have a big part in designing the state law. I believe after the Civil War, people have learned to live together and live in equal standards of one another, and will fight to maintain such circumstances so that they would refuse to disenfranchise voters in fear of losing that equality. In conclusion, as can be said, there are advantages and disadvantages to felon voting. In my perspective, the advantage outweighs the disadvantage. The most important part having to do with what the United States has already been through to establish equal rights to all of Americans. By disenfranchising felons, it undermines everything that has already been fought for. People have the right to know that the weight of a felony crime includes not being able to vote, so they can make a decision with that in mind. The social contract may be a contract between the people of the Commonwealth for protection of selfish pleasure-seeking ways that isn't limited to non-felons. In fact, felons deserve just as much protection. By giving them this protection, it sets an example for them to follow. If they are going to get that same protection, they should have the right to assist in making this decision of who will be making decisions that will affect their lives both as felons and non-felons.